Teacher clarity. Based on the readings and my past training, teacher clarity is when teachers are clear in their expectations and instruction, when learning is organized and intentional, and when learners know what they're learning. It can be summarized into 4 essential elements according to Doug Fisher and Nancy Fry. The teacher knows what students are supposed to be learning. The teachers know how their students learn. Students know what they're supposed to be learning. And both parties know what success looks like. I'll be covering what I think these mean in the following slides. Number 1, teachers know what students are supposed to be learning. Teachers need clear knowledge of what they're supposed to be teaching. They need to know their content, what standards they're supposed to cover, and what skills the students will need to develop to understand the content, as well as they need to know where their students are starting from. This can be done with a pre-assessment of students to know where they're at. By having a clear picture of these things, a teacher can then create a learning progression that fits their students. It's okay to move content, standards, and skills around for a smoother transition and organization of skills and content. The learning progression needs to fit your students. Number 2, teachers know how students learn. While pre-assessing is a good way to understand a student's start point, it oftentimes does not take into account their learning style or personality. The VARK model suggests 4 learning styles that students may have: visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. It's important to use a mix of these styles to test out what type of learners you have. Then, give them the choice of learning or showing their skills in that style throughout the year, while having them improve their skills with the other styles. It's also important to know the personalities of your students because they can affect how the students learn socially, either with peers as a group or individually. Every student is different. I like to give my students the Myers-Briggs test at the beginning of the year so that I can better understand their work style preferences and make learning relatable to their personality. If they're an introvert, they will most likely like to work alone or don't like to be called on during class. Extroverts, you'll have trouble stopping sharing. They love to answer questions. If they're intuitive, they might already know what you're going to go for in the lesson, and they know how their peers work. They know when to stop pressing buttons. Number 3, students need to know what they're supposed to be learning. We can't let them go into lessons blind. We can't hold them to pass and fail expectations without stating our expectations of them first. Teacher clarity suggests that we do this through the setting of learning intentions and success criteria. Learning intentions technically take the place of traditional content and language objectives and put them in student-friendly terms of what they're expected to learn. This makes it easy for students to understand at the beginning of the lesson what is expected of them. Success criteria is, in simple terms, the set outcome that we as teachers want from the students at the end of the lesson. Basically, it tells them what should they have achieved knowledge or skill-wise from completing the learning intentions. Examples of this could be answering essential questions or proof of a topic or concept mastery in the form of a skill or a project. Number 4, both teachers and students need to know what success looks like. What are we expected to know, and how is it expected to look at the end of the year? When creating success criteria, teachers need to take into account the learning progression that they made. Consider where are the students on the learning progression and where do we want them to be? What Bloom skills do the students need to know to be successful in the future? And what should their depth of knowledge be of the content? Basically, what do you want them to take away from your course? After a teacher thinks all this through, they should then create a post-assessment that includes them. An example of a post-assessment that would include Bloom skills and the depth of knowledge would be a Bloom ball. It shows off different Bloom skills that students learn throughout the course while featuring the content, and they're easy to create rubrics for and examples, which are very helpful for students. For students, as mentioned before, It's important to have rubrics, an example, and clear instructions in their success criteria. Their success criteria needs to be clear to read and have a clear goal. It is easy for them to understand what is expected of them when there are examples. Most of the time, my students don't even read the instructions or look at the rubric until I tell them to and I have a check-in with them. But if they see a picture of the project that they're supposed to be doing, they barely need the instructions because they have an example in front of them. The sources I used were Fisher Fry Chapter 3 Clarity in the Engagement by Design, our textbook. Fisher Fry, the Teacher Clarity Playbook that I've used in PD with my school. The Myers-Briggs Foundation website, which I use for my students' personality tests every year. And the VARC Modalities website, which is a guide to learning styles.